Pleasure is the bait, discipline is the hook, and history proves one truth. The weak are devoured by their impulses, while the strong bend desire into a weapon. So let me ask you, do you command your desires, or are you quietly ruled by them? Most people chase quick rewards, the sugar, the scroll, the purchase, the distraction. They think they're choosing pleasure, but in reality they are selling their future piece by piece, their strength, their wealth, their freedom, traded away for crumbs of gratification. But Machiavelli knew better. He wrote not about comfort, but about power. And he would tell you this: the man who masters his impulses becomes the man who rules his world. Because the greatest achievement of discipline is not in denial. It is in mastery. It is in delayed gratification, the ability to suffer now so you can conquer later. And that is what this video is about. You're about to learn 7 Machiavellian laws of delayed gratification. These are not soft self-help tips. They are ruthless strategies: how to fortify your environment, how to turn patience into a blade, how to bend time, weaponize pain, and even reshape your identity. By the end, you won't just understand discipline. You will see how to build a system so strong that temptation cannot touch you. You will see how every small sacrifice today becomes a throne tomorrow. Because delayed gratification is not just a habit, it is sovereignty. It is the mark of rulers, conquerors, and builders of empires. So stay with me, because once you master these 8 laws, you will never see self-control the same way again.
Hey guys, we're Strategy, based in Abu Dhabi. We use AI tools to make these concepts come to life, but it's our amazing team who goes deep, breaking down powerful philosophical ideas and showing how they really apply in everyday life. We hope you enjoyed today's content.
Law 1. Rule your environment. Control the field, or be conquered by it. Do you really think you're strong enough to resist temptation every single time? Be honest with yourself. You open the fridge late at night, and ice cream is waiting. You sit at your desk and your phone buzzes with a notification, a message, a video, a feed that never ends. You whisper, "I can resist." But can you? Here's the truth most people never admit. Willpower is fragile. It cracks under pressure. It bends when desire strikes. That's why structure is strength. You fail not because you are weak, but because your environment is full of silent assassins. The fridge, the phone, the feed, they hide in plain sight, ambushing you at the exact moment your guard drops, and you fall. Think about it like this. Does a soldier walk into battle on open ground, unprotected? Number, he builds walls, he fortifies his city, because without defense, even the bravest soldier will be crushed. And this is exactly what Machiavelli warned. A prince who rules without fortifying his city is doomed. Weak walls invite invasion. Strong fortresses repel it. So what would Machiavelli do? He would never trust in strength of character alone. He would look at the battlefield, identify every weak point, and build defenses before the enemy struck. He would not wait for discipline to collapse. He would remove every opening the enemy could use. Now look at your own life. Your mind is your city. Junk food is a siege weapon. Social media is an invading army. Notifications are spies slipping through your gates. Without barriers, you will be overrun. That is why you must turn your environment into a fortress. Remove the temptations from your home. Throw out the food that calls you when you are weak. Disable the apps that steal hours of your life. Build visual reminders everywhere you look. Your goals on the wall, your trackers on the desk, progress where your eyes cannot avoid it. These are not little habits, they are barricades. They are your walls against invasion. If you fail to rule your environment will rule you. And when it does, your discipline is no longer yours. It belongs to the enemy. So let me ask you, in your life right now, is your environment protecting you, or is it quietly destroying you? Law 2. Master micro delays. Turn patience into a blade. Most people think control is forged in grand battles, the massive life decisions, the huge turning points, the dramatic moments. But that is a lie. Control is not built in the war. It is built in the seconds, in the micro delays, in the tiny moments where impulse whispers, "Do it now." Why do you fall? Not because you are powerless, but because you act instantly. One click and your money is gone. One word and your relationships are scarred. One indulgence and your progress is undone. Every downfall begins with an instant surrender. Machiavelli understood this truth better than anyone. He wrote that a prince who conquers himself in small matters becomes master of greater ones. A ruler does not prove his strength in the decisive war, but in the small skirmishes that prepare him for it. The training ground of restraint is not the battlefield. It is in the hallway, the kitchen, the office, the moments when nobody is watching. So what would Machiavelli do? He would train his patience in the smallest of arenas, knowing that those victories compound into power. He would sharpen the blade of control not by waiting years, but by mastering seconds. That is your path too. If you can wait 10 minutes before buying, you've conquered the pull of desire. If you can hold 5 seconds before speaking in anger, you've turned rage into silence, and silence into power. If you can delay your indulgence until one task is complete, you've proven that you rule yourself. And by ruling yourself, you become capable of ruling anything. This is not about deprivation. It is about domination. Each pause is a brick. Each delay is a weapon. Every time you wait, you are fortifying your mind. You are showing yourself and the world that you do not bow to impulse. Impulse bows to you. So ask yourself this: how many seconds have you thrown away today? How many battles did you lose before you even noticed? Because every second you delay is not just time. It is proof of sovereignty. It is a brick in the fortress of your will. Law 3. Visualize the future reward. See victory before it arrives. Here's why you keep falling. Your brain doesn't obey logic. It obeys images. It doesn't care about the numbers on your savings plan or the abstract idea of health. It cares about what it can picture clearly. That's why the cookie in your hand is so much more tempting than the dream body you imagine in the mirror. The cookie is vivid. The body is vague. The pleasure in front of you is sharp, while the future feels distant and blurry. And that is where discipline dies. Not in weakness, not in laziness, but in vagueness. The present always beats the future, unless you can make the future sharper. Machiavelli saw this in politics and war. He praised rulers who imagined the enemy's moves long before the battle began. The careless prince who lived only in the present was ambushed. The wise one saw the trap before it was set. He saw the battlefield in his mind. Every enemy, every formation, every outcome. And because he saw it first, he owned it before the fight even began. So what would Machiavelli do if he were you, living in an age of endless distraction and instant gratification? He would not rely on vague hopes. He would paint the future with ruthless clarity. He would see himself already victorious. He would feel the crown on his head before it touched him. He would make the vision so real that nothing in the present could compete. And you must do the same. If your goal is to build a body of power, don't just say, "I want to get fit." Imagine walking into a room and people moving aside because of your presence. Imagine the strength in your hands, The fire in your lungs, the silence of respect around you. If your goal is financial freedom, don't just repeat, "I want to be rich." Imagine sitting in your home office with no boss, no alarm clock, no debt, knowing that you own your time. Imagine buying what you want without asking permission. Imagine the peace of sovereignty. This is not daydreaming. This is warfare against impulse. The cookie cannot beat the vision of power if that vision is sharper than the taste of sugar. The scroll of social media cannot compete with the picture of you sitting on the throne you built with your own hands. So build that vision daily. Journal on it until it becomes undeniable. Describe your victory in detail. Write down exactly how you will look, how you will feel, how others will respond to you. Place cues everywhere. On your walls, on your phone lock screen, in the mirror you face every morning. Let your future haunt you more than your cravings tempt you. Because once the throne is clear in your mind, the dungeon of impulse loses its grip. Once you can see your freedom, you stop selling yourself for pennies of pleasure. So I'll ask you, do you see your future as clearly as the thing in front of you right now? Or are you still blinded by the brightness of today's craving? Remember this. If you can see the throne clearly, the dungeon of impulse will not tempt you. Law 4. Break goals into milestones. Divide and dominate. Here's the hard truth. The distant future is too far away for most minds to endure. That's why you keep abandoning your goals, not because you're incapable, not because you're weak, but because the mountain you're staring at feels impossible to climb. You look at the top, and it breaks you before you even take the first step. Think about it. How many times have you told yourself, "I'll change my body this year," or "I'll save $10,000," only to give up after a few weeks? The goal was too big, too far, too heavy. Your brain doesn't know how to fight something that massive, so it quits. Machiavelli knew this truth well. He observed that wise rulers never tried to subdue an entire kingdom at once. That was suicide. Instead, they crushed rebellion one province at a time. They divided their enemies into smaller battles and took them piece by piece. And in the end, the whole kingdom fell. Not in a single blow, but in fragments. What would Machiavelli do if he were you? He would never tell himself, "I will conquer everything in one strike." He would break his ambition down into provinces. He would set his eyes on one territory at a time, and he would not rest until that peace was his. Then he would move to the next, and the next, until the entire empire was under his command. That is exactly how you must approach your goals. If your ambition is financial freedom, don't obsess over the final number. Break it down into monthly targets. 1,000 this month, another 1,000 the next. Piece by piece, the mountain shrinks. If your ambition is fitness, don't obsess over the final body. Split it into weekly conquests. 5 pounds this month, an extra rep next week, a faster mile next time. Small victories add up to empires, and here's the secret. You must celebrate each minor conquest, not with indulgence, but with recognition. Each step is proof that you're advancing. Each milestone is a province taken, and the more victories you rack up, the harder it becomes to quit. Because now, you're not chasing a dream. You're building an empire brick by brick. So stop staring at the mountain. Stare at the next step. Take it, then the next, then the next. That is how kingdoms are conquered. That is how empires are built. No empire is taken whole. It is seized piece by piece. Law 5. Attach pain to immediate gratification. Make indulgence your executioner. Humans are not driven equally by pleasure and pain. One force is always stronger. And it is not pleasure. It is pain. You can dangle rewards all day long, but the moment pain enters the equation, behavior changes instantly. People will crawl through fire to escape suffering, yet they will barely move to reach pleasure. That's why you cave. That's why you surrender to indulgence. Not because it feels so good, but because it carries no penalty. The cake has no consequence. The distraction has no punishment. The indulgence feels free, and so you take it, again and again. Machiavelli was ruthless in pointing out this truth. He declared it better for a ruler to be feared than loved. Love is soft. Love is unreliable. Fear binds stronger. Fear creates obedience. It makes people act, not because they want to, but because they must. What would Machiavelli do if he were you? He would never leave indulgence unpunished. He would make every slip, every weakness, every indulgence cost something. He would attach pain to it until the sweetness turned sour. And that is exactly what you must do. Make indulgence terrifying. Make it your executioner. If you break discipline, you pay. Use financial penalty apps that take your money when you fail. Announce your goals publicly so that every failure carries the sting of shame. Reframe indulgence not as a harmless treat, but as treason against yourself, betrayal of your own kingdom. Because that is what it is. The cookie is not just sugar. The binge is not just a moment. The distraction is not just harmless scrolling. Each is betrayal. Each is treason. Each is a knife turned against your empire. When the price of weakness outweighs the sweetness of pleasure, discipline becomes inevitable. Because now the cost is higher than the reward. Now your mind sees indulgence not as a gift, but as poison. So I'll ask you this. What penalty do you have for breaking your word? What pain have you attached to indulgence? If the answer is nothing, then you already know why you keep failing. Remember, when the price of weakness exceeds the pleasure, discipline becomes inevitable. Law 6. Control time. Control desire. Impulse is strongest in the heat of the moment. It strikes like fire. Sudden, overwhelming, blinding. In that instant, you feel as though you must act. Buy it now. Say it now. Do it now. But here's the truth. Most of what feels urgent today will look foolish tomorrow. You don't fall because you lack intelligence. You fall because you lack time. You give in before your reason catches up. Desire thrives on speed. If you slow it down, it loses its teeth. Machiavelli knew this well. He observed that rulers who rushed decisions often lost their states, while those who paused, calculated, and let the frenzy of the moment settle, preserved their power. He praised patience as a weapon, a tool that allowed a prince to outlast both enemies and impulses. So what would Machiavelli do if he stood in your shoes? He would never make decisions in the heat of passion. He would let time become his shield. He would allow urgency to fade so that wisdom could rise. He would force himself to wait, not because waiting feels good, but because waiting reveals the truth. That is why you must implement the 24-hour rule. Never make major financial or emotional decisions instantly. When the urge to buy screams at you, delay one day. When the anger burns hot in your chest, wait one day. When desire claws at your mind, hold off one day. You'll discover that what once felt irresistible now looks pathetic. This is how you bend time to your will. You let the fire of impulse burn itself out while you stand untouched. You let urgency die, and in its place, clarity appears. Control time, and you control desire. So I'll ask you, how many mistakes in your life could have been avoided if you had just waited one more day? How many scars could have been prevented if you had given yourself time? Remember this: the man who masters time cannot be ruled by impulse. Law 7. Anchor to identity not willpower. Here's the secret no one tells you. Willpower fades. It's like a muscle. The more you use it, the weaker it gets. You can resist once, twice, maybe even 10 times. But eventually the muscle gives out, and you cave. That's why so many people live in cycles of strength and collapse, discipline and relapse. But identity is permanent. Identity does not argue. Identity does not tire. When something is part of who you are, you don't need to force it. You simply do it. Think about it. There is a difference between saying, "I'm resisting dessert," and saying, "I'm the kind of person who eats clean." In the first, you are fighting yourself. In the second, you are declaring yourself. The fight disappears because the decision is already made. Machiavelli understood this principle in politics. A ruler's strength came not from his promises, but from the identity he projected. If the people saw him as decisive, he did not need to prove it each day. If they saw him as ruthless, he did not need to explain his actions. Appearances became reality. Identity became destiny. So what would Machiavelli do if he stood in your life? He would not waste his strength on constant resistance. He would build an identity so sharp that every action flowed from it naturally. He would not say, "I'm forcing myself to save." He would say, "I'm an investor, not a spender." He would not say, "I'm trying to be disciplined." He would say, "I'm a ruler of myself." And that is what you must do. You must stop anchoring your discipline to willpower and start anchoring it to identity. When you shift the story, you tell yourself, every decision aligns automatically. Saving money is no longer a fight. It's what an investor does. Eating clean is no longer a struggle. It's what a disciplined man does. Saying no to distraction is no longer a battle. It's simply beneath who you are. Delayed gratification becomes effortless when it is part of who you are, because identity is stronger than impulse. So I'll ask you, who are you really? Are you a man constantly fighting himself? Or are you the kind of man who no longer needs to fight because his very identity demands strength? Remember this: willpower fades, but identity is permanent. Anchor to it, and you will not break.
Thanks for spending time with us. If this sparked a new way of thinking, hit like and subscribe to keep the ideas flowing. And don't forget, check the description for the links to the original books and resources we used today. We'll see you in the next one.